Chris, if you can go on mute, please. All right, Matt, do we have anyone else who's coming in?
People are still coming in, but yes, there are still people who are coming in. I'd give it another minute or two, and then I think you should go ahead.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll get started in just a minute. Just so everyone is aware, we are recording this call, and after the call, we will share out the recording with the press, so that can help you with your pieces. Good afternoon, Congressman Welch. Thank you so much for taking it. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you.
Thank you.
How are you?
We're doing well. We're going to start shortly. So hopefully, the timing works out with your schedule.
I'm on the house. I'm in the cloakroom of the house, and I'm just jumping back and forth to vote. I'm on the house. Jumping back and forth. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Great.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a repeat.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a
Oh, Anor.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Anor, if you could go on mute, please. All right, thank you all so much. Well, let's get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Morgan Nichols, and I'm the State Director of Main Street Alliance of Vermont and the co-lead of the Vermont Family Coalition, along with Michelle Fay of Voices for Vermont's Children and Carrie Brown of the Vermont Commission on Women. This coalition is made up of over 25 organizations from throughout Vermont who are joining us in this fight to pass paid leave. I want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy summer schedules to be here today as we launch We Believe in Paid Leave, a campaign looking to raise awareness and lift up Vermont's strong support for the passage of an equitable and robust national paid family leave solution. I want to thank our legislative leaders who are here today to share their support for this policy, and to the over 25 Vermont legislators who signed on to a call to Congress to include paid family and medical leave in the American Families Plan. We thank you all for your continued leadership on this policy and look forward to our collective work ahead. Additionally, I want to thank the individuals of this video for having the courage to share their stories, some of which are often incredibly challenging to tell. We wouldn't be here today without you. And finally, I want to thank Kristen Cantu and Chad Irvin of Well Told Films for their deep commitment and care in working with these individuals, and for all of your hard work in crafting this video series. A little bit of housekeeping. In addition to the premiere of this video, we will have a number of speakers on today's call. If everyone can take just a second and make sure that you're on mute, that would be incredibly helpful. And just so you all know, at the end of this call, we will have the opportunity to engage in a Q&A. If you'd like to ask a question, please put your name and affiliation in the chat, and I will call on you. Additionally, as I said before, I want to thank Congressman Welch for joining us. We know that this is an incredibly busy time as you're ducking in and out to vote on the floor in DC. And as always, we are so grateful for your time. And now I'm going to pass it over to Akshita Nayak of Jericho, Vermont.
Hi, everyone. As Morgan said, we want to start by thanking everyone for being here today, particularly our legislative leaders. We are so grateful for all that you have done to support Vermont throughout this pandemic, and for taking the time today to stand with us, calling for a robust national solution to paid family and medical leave. We know that without universal and comprehensive paid family leave, people will fall through the cracks. It is, simply put, what always happens. And the consequences for these workers and families are high. Our country talks so much about communities and families, but now it is time to actually support them. Give them a base that they know will not get pulled out from under them during what could be some of the toughest days of their lives. Small businesses are often, and rightly so, called the lifeline of our communities. And in the pandemic, Our frontline and service workers literally put their health and safety at risk every day to provide for us. This policy will be game-changing for them and for the growing number of sole proprietors like me who want to work and provide for our community. We often have no choice but to push ourselves through extremely difficult personal situations with no financial support. We need a national solution that will provide for all workers, all small businesses, provide enough compensation and time for it to be effective, provide for all kinds of leave, including personal, family, and parental. We can make an impact here that will last beyond us, and that is powerful. We want to take a moment to lay out the goals of this campaign. We want to raise public awareness on the issue and opportunity before us and provide ways for them to get involved. We want to show Vermont's strong and unified support for the passage of an equitable and strong national paid family and medical leave solution, and to lift up and thank our legislative leaders for their leadership on this policy and offered our continued support to help them get this across the finish line. To kick off this campaign, we're thrilled to premiere We Believe in Paid Leave, Vermonters for Paid Leave. We hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much. And now I'm just going to share my screen so everyone can see the video.
Paid family medical leave is important for the health of everyone who works, which is most of us.
Never occurred to me that there could be a system that would support me as an entrepreneur during periods of life that are hard, because I'd never seen it.
Women of color are the majority of service workers. It's just the sector that we're in. There are plenty of women of color in this country, in Vermont, who have absolutely no options when it comes to family leave. They're working 2 to 3 jobs sometimes, and often those jobs are servicing other people's families.
When we drop out of the workforce to take care of family members, there's a big cost associated with that.
I was so concerned about making money the entire time I was pregnant. I worked up until the day I went into labor.
To take this time without the stress of money, income, and your job expecting you to come back, it means the world.
You shouldn't have to worry about becoming homeless because you want to be with your parent when they pass away.
My mother was diagnosed with terminal colon cancer. We were going home to Connecticut every week and driving there and back in one day to not have any breaks in work. It like hit me months later. I regret focusing on things that don't really matter now. Missing work and financial stuff shouldn't have played a role.
Having paid family medical leave would give us an assurance our income wouldn't be devastated by a medical crisis for our family.
Right now, paid family and medical leave is something that you really typically only find in bigger businesses. What a boon it would be to be a small business owner and know that the playing field was leveled.
Small businesses are like what make our communities unique and flourish. How in the world does it make sense that we don't receive the benefits that people working for large corporations receive?
It would help people like me who went through a lot of injuries that they needed to recover from without having to stress about the finances. That would also make it so that we have more money to spend in our community and invest in our futures.
our communities would be healthier. Our family members who get sick would have more care options. And frankly, it's an option that I think is much less expensive.
Knowing how many people support it, how many businesses support it, if there was ever a more obvious case for government support, I could hardly think of one.
This is something that we could choose to change.
Okay. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch that and for everyone who participated in that video. Congressman Welch, we know you are on timeline, so I'm going to pass it over to you and we'll get into more of our statements for today's call. Thank you. You're on, sir, you're on mute.
I want to thank you. You know, it's a strange feeling I have to watch that video, listen to Emily, Faye, Jessica, Liz, I see, and to have you expose the reality that is invisible to so many. How is it that when you go to work, you can be visible? There can be expectations that you do your job. There can be accountability assigned to you that you willingly accept. But when the whole person that you are, that includes loving your mom or dad, that includes wanting to be there if you have a child who's sick, that becomes invisible. And that's really, that's not acceptable. And you know, I want to say this too. There's an economic argument to be made about why this is good for the economy. And we saw that in COVID. You know, people whose kids couldn't go to school, they couldn't go to work, and they had to make this horrible choice. And it increased the severe pressure that a lot of families on the edge were already experiencing. They didn't know what their financial situation would be. They had to make some money, even if it meant going to work with the great risk. But you know, for me, this is not about just the economy. It's about what kind of society do we want to live in? And what kind of social insurance programs do we want to have that apply to everybody? Because all of us at some time are going to need to take time off. And it may be for our son or daughter, it may be for our mom or dad, but we're going to need it. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, it will. You know, for all of us, our time will come. And should your ability to express that love that you have to the person who is in your life day in and day out, should that be dependent on whether you work at a place where it's a big employer and they can afford it, or it's a small employer and somehow, some way they're willing to do it? And really, is it the responsibility of a employer to do it, especially our small businesses that are, you know, by and large, my experiences in Vermont, they care deeply about the folks who work there. And, you know, we live in a society down here, we're having these debates about what's going to be in the Biden family package. And there's money to take care of this in our society. I mean, my Republican colleagues just voted against giving money to the IRS to collect taxes from people who owe them, billionaires and these multinational companies. And we won't even collect taxes from people who owe the money, let alone can afford to pay it. So this is a basic decision that should be made, in my view, about the respect that families, whatever kind of family it is you have, should be accorded. It's about an understanding that in a society, we make common commitments to one another. But as part of that commitment, we have to set up systems and structures that allow that promise to be kept. And I do believe that in order for this to become real, there has to be a major federal role. Now, in order for us to have the federal government act, the leadership at the state level has been essential. The work that you're doing, making visible the reality of each of those workers who testified in this film, making visible the wholeness of their life, making visible the love they have that motivates them to want to get this time to take care of a loved one, not to get time off. So I want to salute you for the extraordinary work that you're doing. I think that video just captures the humanity of our objective and what our job is politically. And I know you've got a number of representatives here, and I see Becca and Molly and Jill. You all are doing great work. This is the work that we should be doing, creating stability and security for families, because anxiety, economic insecurity, wondering whether you can be there at home on time to take care of the one you love, that grinds away at the soul. And it doesn't need to be. And what you are saying, what you are doing is saying it won't be. We are going to change it. So I look forward to being your partner here with Bernie and Patrick, doing everything we can for the federal government to do what governments all across Western Europe do and treat their families as major priorities. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Congressman Welch. We really appreciate all of your words and your support in this effort. And just to keep us moving, I'm going to pass it over to Lieutenant Governor Mullen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Main Street Alliance. It's absolutely wonderful to be here today to be able to talk about a topic that's so near and dear to my heart. I'm 100% committed to helping get paid family and medical leave across the line, be it a federal plan or a state plan. But I also just want to recognize all of the leaders here today who were in the video, just to thank you for taking your personal experience and turning it into advocacy and action for the state. I think, as Congressman Welch said, that sometimes it can be hard unless you've had a personal experience to understand how deeply important paid family and medical leave can be to one's own economic security, to one's own well-being, and to the well-being of one's family. For anyone who's navigated a family crisis, caregiving, pregnancy, a miscarriage, caring for a newborn or for a child, the need for paid family and medical leave is palpable, it's visceral, and it's so deeply obvious, and particularly here in Vermont. I'll never forget when my mother got sick and was hospitalized in March of 2019. I was working as an assistant attorney general during the day and teaching law school classes at night in order to be able to pay my student loans and my rent. When my mom was hospitalized, I used up all of my accrued vacation and sick days, which wasn't much because I hadn't been there for a year, to be at the hospital helping my family navigate a pretty significant crisis. As I ran out of paid leave, I began to wonder what would happen if I had to take unpaid leave. How long could I go before I wouldn't be able to make my student loan payments or pay my rent? Or worse, would I have to leave my job altogether? But my story is not unique. Long before the pandemic, Vermont women and caregivers were finding themselves in the position of having to make tough decisions between caring for loved ones and paying the bills. As we know, the pandemic exacerbated everything. According to the National Women's Law Center, between February 2020 and February 2021, 2.3 billion women completely left the workforce in the United States. Here in Vermont and across the nation, one dominant reason for this was childcare and dependent caregiving. According to the data released by the Biden administration, this pandemic has set back 30 years of progress of women in the workforce and has meant $64 billion in lost wages and economic activity. But what I want to talk about is what this means specifically for Vermont and what makes the lack of paid family and medical leave so harmful to our state and to similarly situated states. We're one of the oldest states in the nation. We have a persistent demographic crisis. We keep saying that, and it's true. Our workforce continues to shrink, as does our revenue from people leaving the workforce. We have more deaths than births in a majority of Vermont counties, and we have a sandwich generation, my generation, a generation that expands numerous decades in the state, that is both caring for parents or a parent or family member on the one hand that is older, and for a child or children at the same time. Add on student loan debt, add on a mortgage or rental payments, add on childcare costs, and this generation is on the brink of crisis, if not already in crisis. Simply put, our families, our communities, our employers, and economy lose when women and caregivers leave the workforce. We simply can't afford it here in Vermont. A stronger recovery means long overdue investments in a national, comprehensive, universal paid family and medical leave policy that ensures that no Vermonter has to make those tough decisions. Our congressional delegation, it goes without saying, has my absolute full support in getting the American Families Plan over the line, and Vermonters can count on me continuing day in and day out to work hard for a solution that allows families and communities here in Vermont access to paid family and medical leave. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor Gray. Appreciate your comments as well. Again, we're going to keep things moving forward, and we do have a pre-recorded response from Senator Becca Balint. Unfortunately, she is away right now, and so I'm just going to share my screen so I can share that recording. Oh, goodness. Okay, let's try that again. I apologize. Speaker Krowinski, do you want to, I would hate to put you on the spot. I know we were planning to have you go next, but is that okay?
Absolutely. I'm having flashbacks from being on the House floor. Totally classic and normal, Morgan.
So your support and ability to be nimble. Thank you.
Absolutely. It is so great to be here with all of you this afternoon. Thank you again, Morgan, and for Main Street Alliance for hosting this event, and to all of you for joining virtually. The past year and a half has been one of the most challenging times in our nation's history, and all of us have been impacted in some way by the pandemic. And while we are still working to stop the spread of COVID-19, we have a lot to be proud of as Vermonters in the way that we continue to support our families, friends, and communities. At the beginning of the legislative session, I repeated the call for the legislature to come together and to create a recovery plan that leaves no Vermonter behind. We have seen that housing and food insecurity, lack of access to affordable childcare, a digital divide and available broadband internet, and other gaps in programs in all 14 counties. These challenges brought us together, though, to act quickly and find solutions. I am proud of our historic investment in our higher education system and workforce development programs. We have seen the interest in these opportunities already exceed our hopes for success. We passed a major childcare bill that makes investments in our childcare system to support providers and work towards the goal of drastically lowering the cost of childcare for families. We invested more in affordable housing than ever because low and medium income housing was and still is desperately needed. These types of resiliency programs are crucial for families' financial security. However, there are other programs and investments that are needed, and one of which is why we're here today. Vermonters and people across our state need access to paid leave. The stories we heard in the video are the same stories I hear every day in my community. I have long been an advocate for paid leave, and I'm thrilled that President Biden, leaders in Congress, and our federal delegation support a paid leave program. Small businesses are the backbone of our Vermont economy, and so many of these businesses have long called for the need to support workers and businesses by having a leave program. A federal program where all businesses, regardless of size, have access to family and medical leave would be a game changer for our state. Vermonters should not have to choose between taking care of a loved one or risk losing their job. The pandemic has shown that women and the BIPOC community were disproportionately impacted, and having a national leave program would be an incredible step in creating greater equity in the workplace. There's still a lot of unknown of what will make it into this final infrastructure package, but I want to make sure to give a huge thank you to Senators Leahy and Sanders and Congressman Welch. Their advocacy for programs that will help us recover from this pandemic will have ripple effects for generations to come. I look forward to working with you all to continue the call for a family and medical leave program. And I think with all of our voices united, we can make sure that Congress hears us loud and clear. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Speaker Krowinski, for your continued support and leadership on this issue. I think I've gotten our technical issue solved, so we're going to move forward. But again, thank you. Hopefully this works. Share. And now we're going to hear from Senator Becca Balint.
Hello, I am Senate President Becca Balint, and I represent Windham County. And I'm sorry I can't be here today in real life, in real time, to talk to you about paid family leave. It is an issue that's very important to me, but I am away from Vermont for the week, but I didn't want to miss this opportunity to talk about this issue because it's something that's very important to me. And before I go any further, I want to thank Eric and Emily, Jessica, Liz, Carmen, Faye, Akshata, and Faye for their stories and their comments in the video. And I want to speak for a few minutes about what Aaron said most specifically, because it was a story that really, really moved me and struck a chord with me. And I want to tell you a little bit about that. A couple of years ago, my mom's best friend from high school had some really, really bad news about her son. And he was dying of cancer. He was in Florida and she was in New York. And she and her husband didn't know what to do because they knew they wanted to be with their son during the last few months of his life. And they didn't want to worry about how they were going to make their financial obligations. And so Erin's story spoke so clearly to me about her experience with this same terrible choice that she had to make, driving back and forth to see her mother while her mother was dying, and worrying about paying her bills, worrying about whether she was doing the right thing. And when she looked back, she realized that was a really horrible position that she was put in, to have to choose between taking care of her family through showing up for her job or being there for her mother at the very end of her life. And so her story is unfortunately a pretty universal one. So many people across the state, across the country can relate to this, that we don't have a system for allowing people to be absolutely human in their relationships with their family members when you have a health crisis. And I know everyone on this call gets it. This isn't good for families. It's not good for communities. It's not good for the emotional health and safety of individuals and families when we do not take care of people during these times of crisis. So I am a big supporter of paid family leave, and want to thank our congressional delegation. Leahy and Sanders and Welch have done a tremendous job for Vermont. And there's another time when we know that they're there in DC. They're voting their values. They're taking care of Vermonters and all of their needs at every stage of life. And we just want to let you know that we stand behind you. We in the legislature stand behind you and the work that you're doing in DC. And as somebody who has served on the Economic Development Committee in the Senate for years, I also know this is of particular interest to me in my legislative hat, because I know issues around paid family leave are very important to small businesses, to sole proprietors, to all those small entrepreneurial endeavors across our state. And they could use some help. They could use some help making the finances work, taking care of themselves, taking care of their workers if it's a small business. And I know I don't need to tell all of you, but I just want to make a really clear show of support around paid family leave, because it is an equity issue. It is about fairness. It's about helping women. It's about helping people of color. It's about helping single parents across the state. And I really hope that in the next year or so, we're going to be able to finally see paid family leave get over the finish line. And I can't wait to see that day. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak to you all this morning, and know that I am absolutely with you in spirit. Thank you.
Well, I think that actually worked as a good finish, because I think that just sort of rounds out exactly what we're trying to do here: show strong and unified support for an equitable and robust national paid family and medical leave solution. I'm going to kick it over to Faye Longo to close us out, and then we'll move into a Q&A.
So thank you to all of our leaders for taking the time to be here today, and to Congressman Welch for making time in your busy schedule to join us. Just to reiterate, our campaign goals and objectives are to raise public consciousness on the issue of paid leave and the opportunity we have before us, and to provide opportunities for folks to get involved and lift up their voices, show strong and unified support for the passage of an equitable and strong national paid family medical leave solution. And we want to lift up and thank our legislative leaders for their leadership on this policy, and offer our continued support to help them get this across the finish line. The arc of the campaign over the next few months will include a robust social media campaign highlighting these 8 individual stories. And we want to provide an opportunity for us all to come together to celebrate workers and families at Red Hen Bakery in Middlesex on August 29th from 3 to 5 p.m. Now we will open it up to questions from the press.
Thank you so much, Faye. So if you do have a question, please go ahead and put it in the chat, put your name and affiliation, and I will call on you. Allison Novak, 7 days.
Hello. I was just curious to know how Vermont stacks up in terms of offering paid family and medical leave with the rest of the country. I know there were some national stats that were included in some of your press materials, but how is Vermont doing compared to the rest of the country?
In terms of private employers that are offering paid family and medical leave?
Yes.
I think that as the stats that I believe that we have are, that around 40% of our businesses are able to offer some sort of paid family and medical leave. But it's also, they're rough numbers and they're old numbers. It's hard to get a really strong sense of what those look like. Additionally, I'll also lift up that not always are those plans exactly what they need to be. They don't offer adequate time. They don't offer adequate compensation, and it's always limited. What does it always, or does it necessarily cover non-birth parents? Does it cover family leave? And does it provide enough time? So yeah, often those programs are limited and unable to give a worker or a family the time and the compensation that they need to truly heal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Mays, Brattleboro Reformer.
I was just wondering if you guys are trying to work with groups in other states, or are you looking to do that? Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. That's a great question. Yeah, there is a broad coalition of organizations throughout this country working to raise our voices to support a national solution for paid family and medical leave. So Main Street Alliance specifically, we have a Vermont chapter, but we're also part of a national organization, and we're lifting up the small business voice from throughout the country, calling for paid family and medical leave. But then we're also part of a number of other coalitions, working to lift up stories and get in front of our members of Congress to show how critical and urgent this it is that we pass an equitable and robust paid family and medical leave solution. Thanks for that question. I'll give it another few seconds. Brianna Borgi, I don't want to get that wrong, from NBC5.
Close enough. We'll take that. No problem. One of those pillars you mentioned was expanding the public consciousness and awareness surrounding the issue. Can any of you sort of detail what some of those efforts are, where people could actually go to find that information, what getting involved would actually look like?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. So we're going across our coalition, we're going to be lifting up these videos. So we're going to be putting things out through our social media, and we're hoping that all of our constituents will start to share these videos. We saw during the raise the vote, or I'm sorry, when we were trying to raise public consciousness about voting in the fall, right? The social media wave that came out was incredible. So we're hoping that there's going to be a similar wave that we can create. We have just launched vtpaidleave.org is a website on behalf of the Vermont Family Coalition, where we are lifting up all of these stories. We have both the comprehensive video with all 8 stories, but then we have 8 individual drawdown stories that we will be sharing throughout this campaign. But there's also a sign-on that's there, which will give people the opportunity to hear about individual actions that they can take over time to lift up their voice, contact our members of Congress. So that's also a good hub for people to connect with.
Great, thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for putting it in the chat. Well, if that is all, I cannot thank you all enough for taking the time out of your day to join us as we kick off this campaign. It's been a long time coming, and I'm so grateful to all, like I said before, I'm so grateful to all of the individuals who shared their story for this video, and to all of our lawmakers for all of your leadership. We're so grateful to you, and we're so looking forward to seeing this get across the finish line. So thank you all so much for being here today. And if anyone has any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. I will put my email in the chat. Thank you. Take care.